Right now, we are living the age of the remakes. Most companies are remaking or remastering their legacy titles, giving them a fresh coat of paint, adding lost or rare content, porting them to newer hardware, and even breaking decade-long exclusivities. Through all of this, there is Capcom, who are considered by many the kings of remakes because they are not only porting older games to newer hardware, but are also reimagining, from the ground up, their oldest stories, making them accessible to a whole new generation of players who had never tasted these treats before. After the success of the Resident Evil 2, 3 and 4 remakes, the topic among the fans have been which remake should come next and which is likelier to happen first, along with plenty of leaks that point out different games, from RE5 to Code Veronica to RE0, and even a second remake of the very first Resident Evil. Today I want to talk about RE1 and 0, the ones that excite me the most, mainly because these are the two I fully played and reviewed in the channel. So without further ado, let us begin. The first one is an obvious one. Both games should retain the fixed cameras, RE1 in particular. This game, in all of its versions, has featured fixed cameras. The fixed cameras should remain because by removing them you would strip the game of its identity. However, I also understand that the people that played RE2 and 3 remake and every single game after the fourth want and should be able to play with the over-the-shoulder camera style as well. So I propose this. Use them both. If there is a game that should have options for both, is the second remake of Resident Evil 1 and 0 as well, since this game is a sister project made with the assets of the former. I think the developers should implement the capacity to use both camera styles to satisfy both types of players, and this is not something impossible to do. If Rockstar could add a first-person mode to Grand Theft Auto 5 long after its release, then Capcom could implement both modes to their games as well. The success of recent indie horror games that embrace the fixed camera angles demonstrate that there is an audience to this type of game, and some of them, like Them and Us, which I plan to review sooner or later, even manages to add not just one or two, but 3 camera styles. You can play that game with the fixed camera angles of classic horror games, you can play it with a more modern over-the-shoulder style, and even in first person. I mean, if an indie studio can do it, so can Capcom. So instead of fueling bad reviews because they insisted on not doing it, they should. By doing so, they would allow their iconic game to maintain its identity, give retro players that sweet dose of nostalgia, and allow a whole new breed of players to finally enjoy these two wonderful games. Hell, they could even give the players achievements and in-game rewards for beating the game with each mode. That being said, now come the most obvious request for an RE0 remake. You guessed it, the item boxes. The item boxes is something that should be present in an RE0 remake, because that would reduce many of the gripes people have with this game, and if not, they could at least add to the game some sort of bag of holding that adds a few more slots so the player can carry a little bit more and reduce backtracking by a little. Or maybe they could add holster types of items so that you can carry maybe one of your large weapons without consuming space in your main inventory. Maybe a holster for Billy and one for Rebecca, so you can carry that darned grappling hook during those final sections of the game and still have space to carry other stuff that you need. Obviously, an item like that should be able to carry only one large item per holster, so that the decision-making factor of the gameplay remains, while making it more accessible to new players at the same time. The game should also have some sort of classic mode, in which you play RE0 without any of this help, emulating more that original experience because accessibility features are okay, but the game shouldn't lose what makes it unique. So, very much like the fixed cameras, there should be an option for the player to choose how they want to play so every person can be happy. New players, hardcore players, or old school players that simply want to play the remake without suffering their gripes with the original. Classic mode would almost be like the realistic item box mode of RE1 Remake, in which item boxes are no longer interconnected and each one of them carry a limited amount of items. Classic mode is necessary for those, like myself, that fully embrace Zero for what it is, and that would be my preferred mode to play a remake, similar to hardcore mode in the recent RE remakes, which I think is going to be my go-to mode whenever I play those games because Ink Ribbons, at least in my opinion, as someone that started with the original games, is part of what makes Resident Evil unique. But I digress, let's go back to the video. RE0 would also benefit by having the defense weapons, something that I often missed when I played it. Defense weapons was a cool idea that the Resident Evil 1 remake had. It added yet another layer of decision making, because you had these consumables that could prevent you from taking damage from enemy attacks. Often, you would find yourself deciding on whether to use that taser or knife or flash bomb to prevent yourself from taking damage now at the risk of not having it for later. Or, if you would rather keep it, take the blow and then heal yourself in the nearby save room with all the healing herbs that you have talked in the item box. The Crimson Heads should also be present in RE0, because they add another layer of complexity to the first game that was kind of lacking in the prequel. So in a remake they should implement those characters. Kerosene should be added as well, so we can destroy zombies before they mutate into Crimson Heads, or at least make the already existing gasoline usable for this type of situation, which makes complete sense. Gasoline only serves in the prequel to create cocktail molotovs, which is fine, but why can't I pour some of it on a fallen zombie and light it up with fire? All of these things would give more use to Billy's lighter, which is underused throughout the game. Now, this would make Billy even more essential for Rebecca's survival since he is the only one of the two that can burn zombies and prevent them from turning into Crimson Heads. In a remake, they should also give Rebecca more particularities that make her as essential for Billy's survival as he is for hers. In the original RE0, Rebecca was the only of the two characters that could work chemistry, since she had the training and the proper equipment to do so. That way, she can mix herbs and even solve a few science-related puzzles that Billy can't. In a remake, they could add upon that and make Rebecca's scientific know-how even more prevalent, by giving her the ability to fully heal Billy and herself whenever they enter a room with medicines, similar to how she worked in RE1, in which she could heal Chris's wounds each time he visited her in a lab room. Obviously, the medicines should run out after a number of uses to prevent the ability from becoming too overpowered, but that would be an interesting addition that would make RE0 an even better game. And of course, the AI system should be expanded and not contracted like the modern games enjoy doing, giving players more options to tinker with the AI of their partner character, like standing close or far from the main character during combat, putting distance between the enemies and themselves when using ranged weapons, and more importantly, asking them to attack only the enemies that are hurting the main character at that moment. I say this because many were the times in which I would have wanted to bring Rebecca when I was knifing zombies so she would shoot the enemy off of Billy whenever he got grabbed, but ended not doing so because Rebecca would constantly shoot at enemies, wasting ammo and reducing the use of Billy's knife, and often were the times in which she was shooting another enemy and not the one attacking Billy. I would love to have in the remake the capacity of commanding my partner character to shoot only at the enemy that is grabbing me, and only then, not before or after, so that I can continue knifing them without wasting bullets. Since RE0 has so many parallels to tabletop role-playing games, then adding a more complex AI command system of the likes of Neverwinter Nights wouldn't be a bad idea. But gameplay is not only where improvements are due. These remakes could also benefit the story of both games, particularly characters like Rebecca, who appears in both. A problem with Rebecca in these two games is the same problem that happens with prequels in general. The character is exposed to a lot of information across the prequel that she lacks in the original game. This could be fixed in a remake of both, by making the writing more consistent between the two games and portraying her in the RE1 remake not only as a rookie cop that Chris finds in the house and now must protect, but instead as a rookie cop that has accidentally learned a lot about Umbrella's misdeeds and how they are linked to the zombie outbreak, to why Wesker is actively looking for her in this so-called rescue mission, and if Chris manages to take her out of the mansion alive, then she will be able to expose Umbrella. Something like that. Billy Cowan could also benefit from a remake. He was one of the most interesting aspects of RE0, but the character has very little exposition across the game, serving the gameplay more than the story. The first Resident Evil was fun because the supporting characters served the story as much as the gameplay. You would often encounter Barry or Becca as you explored the mansion, breaking the monotony of solving puzzles and fighting zombies. In RE0, however, even if Billy accompanies Rebecca through most of the adventure, their interaction is way less, which is sad because their scenes are actually interesting when they happen. So adding a few more and writing more optional banter between them in the remake would be a welcome addition. And the same first game could benefit from a remake story-wise. An interesting thing that they could do in a remake is make Chris and Jill more present in each one's campaign. After the ruckus at the beginning of the game, with the dogs attacking them and forcing them to take shelter inside the haunted mansion, the characters could separate as they already do, but additionally have them communicate sporadically with their walkie-talkies and create the illusion that they are both in the labyrinthian mansion at the same time. Jill with Barry, Chris with Rebecca, and finding traces of one another in the mansion. If done right, this could make the game even better and more adhesive with the rest of the franchise because, as far as I know, both campaigns are canon, so both Jill and Chris's exploits should be somewhat hinted at in each version of the game. Somewhere in the middle of each campaign, you hear through a conversation with the other character that something terribly bad happens and for all accounts, the other character is dead. But in reality, this is the moment when the character gets captured and why you can rescue him or her at the ending. You could also encounter the partner character closer to the ending. Barry if you play as Chris, or Rebecca if you play as Jill. And this one reveals to you that the by then seemingly dead protagonist is alive and instead captured somewhere in the underground facilities. Barry would then team up with Chris to save Jill, and in Jill's campaign, Rebecca would team up with her to save Chris. Now, I know that this is more related to gameplay than story, but another thing that the developers could do in an RE0 remake is to improve the nature of the final battle. Most boss fights are what they are in this game, and although some of them are too requiring of specific ammo to defeat on harder difficulties, as a whole, they work fairly well, because you can do them with only one of the two characters. However, in the final battle with Soprano Guy, you have to control the two characters at the same time, and what ends up happening is that one of the two gets in the way of the other, particularly on the harder difficulty in which you can take less damage and the beast can tank way more. At first, I tried to overwhelm the beast with both characters, Billy with the grenade launcher and Rebecca with the magnum gun. The same thing I did on easy mode, but that didn't work on hard. My second plan was running around the arena, each character with a weapon, shooting at the beast with the one closest to it. But after another hour of retries, that didn't work either. Eventually, I would spend around 30 to 40 minutes attempting the strategy that would eventually work, and that was have Billy carry all the guns and do all the shooting, since he is technically the better shooter in the game, and all the while I had to drag AI-controlled Rebecca with the right stick, something that is easier said than done, particularly in climatic stressful moments like this. She was literally getting in my way, because I was doing the fight with only one character, like all the other prior boss fights. But this time I had to account for the partner character that is doing nothing but getting herself killed. To be fair, her purpose was to carry the spare guns and ammo for when I needed them, but that was all. And in the meantime she was getting in my way and getting herself killed. This boss fight, although not as obtuse as the giant bat, is another great example of artificial difficulty. This is a relatively easy battle, easier, for example, than the giant crab at the beginning, in which you have to time your attacks perfectly since you have no position to cover yourself from the beast's launch attacks. The only thing that makes this final battle difficult is the fact that you have to account for two characters and not just one. Otherwise, it would be a fairly straightforward affair. I don't mind difficulty when it's well designed. For example, bosses like the Knight Artorias in Dark Souls, which is excellent, in contrast to the Bed of Chaos, which is easily the worst in the whole game. A boss fight difficulty must feel clever, not cheap, and this confrontation with Soprano Guy, sadly, feels more on the cheaper artificial side. In a remake, however, they could change that by redesigning the fight to make both characters more useful and necessary to defeat the monster. How exactly, I do not know, but I'd love to see it improved. However, the Lich Queen, they can leave that one alone. That fight was really exciting on the hardest difficulty, and one in which the two characters are actually well implemented. Similar to Soprano Guy, I went with the same bombarding strategy of easy mode, only to learn the hard way that on the highest difficulty things were going to be different. So next I tried running around the arena shooting at the queen with both characters. Soon after I discovered that a couple of stairs in the room were interactable and not just Decker, and so I positioned each of my characters in one of the stairs away from the creature's grasp and shot at it whenever she went looking for one of the two characters. This worked. The problem afterwards was that Billy, who carried the grenade launcher, the shotgun and the Molotovs, had run out of ammo, and Rebecca, who still had 9mm bullets, is now controlled by the AI, while you, as Billy, have to buy her time for her to open the ceiling so sunlight can get in and blind the creature defenseless. I had left the knife behind so that I could carry healing spray, and the end result is that now I had no way of attacking the queen to get its attention, and it easily did short work of AI-controlled Rebecca. Yes, add yet another kill to the overall kill count. I realized that I couldn't waste Billy's ammo during the first half of the fight, so what I did the next time was reposition my characters each in one stair, tell partner Billy to remain quiet, and have Rebecca handle this first part of the fight. Since she had nearly 100 bullets for her Star Agent gun, I positioned her in an area where the beast couldn't hit her or splash her with acid, and then I blasted at the queen with my 100 bullets, stun locking it until its health ran out, and thus started the second half of the fight. Now was Billy's turn, but unlike the first time, I had plenty of ammo to attack the creature and distract it from Rebecca. Things wouldn't go smoothly from there on, however. In the first attempt, we almost had all the wheels turned and the battle won. But then the timer ran out and the self-destruct system detonated, losing my game. The next attempt was also tricky, because I realized that Billy, after all, didn't have enough ammo to distract the beast, even after using it sparingly, and Rebecca was on critical state and her healing herbs already consumed. However, almost by luck, I managed to get Billy close to wounded Rebecca, close enough to trade items. I had him give her his spraying can so she could heal herself in exchange for her pistol and remaining bullets, and now I, once again, had ammo enough to buy Rebecca a few more seconds. Grabbing hold of Queenie's attention once more, I had Billy lure the beast far from Rebecca, and long enough for her to turn the final wheel, open the ceiling, and trigger the finale. This boss fight is great, as it is, because it fully exploits the potential of the dual protagonist gameplay, the strategy, and the gut-wrenching moment-to-moment decision-making, those nick-of-the-time moments that make these experiences so worth it. If the developers were to change something in this fight, then I would ask them only to expand on the potential of it, and not reduce it, because it is in moments like this where the true beauty of RE0 lies. So this is it. For now, my wishlist for these two games. As a whole, I am really excited with the idea of replaying these games through the remakes. I played them recently, and I have them clear in my brain still. Let me know your opinions in the comments down below. What do you want in the remakes of these two games? If you're excited or worried, let's talk all things RE related. I don't know how many people actually read this long post that I wrote some weeks ago, but long story short, I want not only to expand on the topics already covered in the channel and continue playing the Resident Evil games, but also explore new things, more indies, other stealth games, Souls-likes, horror games, and retros in particular, like the Tomb Raider games, particularly now that they are being remastered, other classic titles like Devil May Cry or Bayonetta, stuff like that. Go back to the older Assassin's Creed games, go back to Prince of Persia, particularly now that Ubisoft seems to be revitalizing the franchise, and plenty of other stuff, but as always, I do not want to overpromise and underdeliver, so we'll leave it at that for now. Before I go, I want to dedicate a message to my loyal subscribers, and that is, thank you. Thank you for all the support you have been giving my channel, and for the very nice and beautiful things that you've said to me in the comments section. I've been going through hard times lately, and you all have been a very sweet and bright spot within the darkness. You are the main reason why I am doing this still. Please take care, for all our sakes. Have a wonderful rest of your day and or night. Love you all, and I'll see you in the next one.